Alright, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another Too Faded and Too Jaded introspection and reflection time. So today I definitely want to talk more about kind of the ego, letting go of your ego. I know I've said it a million times, but I think the most important thing to keep is humility. In terms of, especially when we're young in this generation, I think why we remain so many of us are so self-biased, so many of us are so selfish, so many of us are so self-serving, is because we've come from a generation where we've been told that we're all special. It doesn't necessarily make sense. And because if you think about the generations before us and it talks about mental health and talks about, gender identity or race, whatever, culture, whatever, it was just much more, it wasn't talked about. We have much more open dialogue, much more research done, much more censoring done nowadays, where I feel like now everyone has kind of gotten to the point where they can be comfortable in their own box and their own whatever. And I think the idea of stimulants or overstimulation is very common amongst all of us. We constantly have a phone in our face, a vape in our hand, some people screens, YouTube, the P5, whatever. I feel like we are constantly fed, and social media, and especially as years go on, I feel like those things keep progressing with social media and with just technological improvement overall. I feel like we're just getting more and more distracted as a generation, and kind of more out of touch, because I feel like when a lot of people finally detach, and I think detachment is an interesting I won't even say phenomenon, but detachment's harder. It's an easier word to say, but it's harder to act out, because when we truly are detached from something, we are indifferent towards it. I think I talked about that kind of earlier, when we're talking about the difference between hate and love. But when we truly are, look at me right now, just trying to fix my goddamn hair. That shit don't even matter. But the point of the matter is, we try to kind of cope with detachment, because I think the thing is that most people don't like is change, and we don't like to acknowledge that we ourselves are changing, because we like to stay in our set in our ways. The best way I can put it is high school to college. I feel like a lot of people, when I went to college, a lot of people brought in their high school ass, not necessarily mentality, but kind of the same childish shit we did in high school into college, where I'm not even saying I'm anything special or anything different, but I feel like when I went into college, I kind of had the mentality of, okay, I came here because my parents are investing this large amount of money in me, and I have to contribute something back, because I wanted to go to college. I didn't not want to go to college. I always wanted to open my own gym, had very big goals of doing that. But it's all an investment. But the main thing more so is not only if you're paying out of pocket for college, more so than that is the investment in yourself. I think I've always been very self-invested, and I've always had a very high sense of self-efficacy and a high sense of self-determination, because I never really was given much growing up in terms of handouts. I never asked for handouts, and I never really got many. It's not like I was saying I was super super poor growing up, or pretty much middle class, but at the same time, I had to get a lot by myself, and I had to pay for a lot by myself. And it's not even me trying to smell myself or ego or nothing, but you have to, when I really started to get things more and more by myself, I really started to change and become more independent, and I put a lot of external stress on me that didn't need to necessarily be there, because I'm still young. So I think the point of what I'm trying to say is, love yourself while you change, but also acknowledge that the change is okay, and acknowledge the change is a positive thing. Change is never necessarily a bad thing unless you feel like it's actually necessarily hurting you or someone around you, or the people around you. When we're young, we constantly think about the future, the next step, the next person, the next money, or the next money we're going to get, whatever, the next ways we're going to entertain ourselves, have fun, which are all, I think memories are extremely vital, because I feel like when we die, do we want to, die with dreams, or do we want to die with memories? And honestly, I would like to look back on my life and at least feel, not necessarily unregretful, because I think everyone's going to have regrets, but I want to look back and be able to say, I did it the best way I could, and I did it the most fulfilling way I could for me, and for the people around me who made my life even better. So yeah, remember that overstimulation is temporary. We can't constantly stay stimulated 24/7. If you're using something to stay stimulated 24/7, whether that be sex, drugs, reading, or music, whatever, try to take time in your day where you can just sit in silence or sit in self-reflection. It could even be as simple as 5 minutes a day, where you just sit and think, or just don't look at a screen, or just go on a walk, do something healthier. And when we're detaching from things that were with us before we were healed, before we were going through the process of healing, you have to also think about, do those things and those people, do they deserve you in your unhealed, or in your healed state, in your state of betterness? Because the one thing we can't care about is anyone else's real opinion. We can value what other people say, but I've really got to the point in my life where most people are either concerned, or most people are either they have something to judge about what I should do, what my future, what I'm saying, how I look. or like whatever. Because I'm just like, but those are all assumptions. Because if you get to know me, like, you know, but the only, you know, it don't really matter because I got to know myself, and I think I'm top drag. Now all y'all watching are top drag. Y'all just gotta, you know, remember where y'all come from and what your values are, and if your self worth. Even though it's as corny as, you know, that shit sounds, as corny as, you know, people saying stay consistent, you know, have this sort of mentality, positive affirmation, as much as that shit is corny, it's just the truth, because the more and more we think about the past, the more we think about other people's opinions, no matter how close they are to you, if they're not close to you, past relationships, whatever, you're gonna ruin yourself, you're gonna be in your head 24/7. But that detaches us from reality. We need to not detach from reality. We need to detach from things that make us detached from reality. But love yourself as you change and remain humble. Remember, your ego is temporary. Ego and success don't match. Ego and success don't match at all. Anyway, love, safety, buddy.